The RS90 is not the topic of today's video. Instead, it's a comment left under a video for the RS90. And that comment said, even a laptop from 2001 can beat the RS90. Now, I don't have a laptop from 2001. I have one from 2005. This laptop is a HP Compaq nc6120. I did install Linux on this device, to be precise NTX Linux. I upgraded the CPU from an Intel Pentium M 1.73 GHz to an Intel Pentium M 2.13 GHz CPU. I added an additional gigabyte of RAM to this laptop, and I swapped out the IDE drive with an SD to IDE adapter. This one had a problem, however, and thanks to this video, I managed to fix it. First, I tested Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance emulation. The Game Boy emulation ran flawlessly. I think most devices out there can run the Game Boy pretty well. It's not a very high spec kind of device. The same with the Game Boy Color. It's not much of an upgrade to the original Game Boy. So if the RS90 can run it, this laptop can, probably your calculator can, your phone can, everything can. And that's also why I didn't test NES on this device. Now, the first toss-up has happened with the Game Boy Advance. Now, while the Retromini could barely play Doom 2, it was slow, and it didn't really look that good, the laptop was able to pull it off flawlessly. I wouldn't complain about playing Doom 2 for the GBA on this device. Now, of course, because this is a laptop, you can also just play Doom. There's nothing holding you back. I played free Doom, but it's basically just Doom with free assets. Now, next up I used SNES to test out SNES games. I played Donkey Kong Country, and it was pretty much flawlessly. Now, while the RS90 says it supports SNES, it doesn't have enough buttons for it, and I found the colors to be off, extremely off in certain cases. I didn't have that problem here on the laptop, and Donkey Kong Country ran flawlessly. Now, it dipped here and there, but these dips are virtually not noticeable. So NES is also absolutely playable on this device. Now, the RS90 cannot play PS1 games, but I thought maybe this laptop can. I used PCSXR to play Tekken. Now, the game looks fine initially when you look at the gameplay. However, it runs only at about 75 to 50% of the original speed. With speed hacks, it will somewhat work, but it still will look and sound a bit jarring. Now, if you intend to play JRPGs like Final Fantasy, Vagrant Story, Xenogears, then you should be able to pull it off, because the frame rate wouldn't matter as much, but you would still have to fight with the audio. The last thing I tested with the RS90 itself was QUAKE. There indeed is a port of QUAKE on the RS90, and it was impressive that it ran on the device, but for actually playing it, it doesn't run well. Now, I tested QUAKE on this laptop with QUAKE Spasm, and it ran pretty much perfectly. I felt like there were some slowdowns, but all in all, it's absolutely playable. Now, it looks like the laptop has beaten the RS90 to a pulp. It plays everything better, it plays more, and hey, it's a laptop, so you can do pretty much whatever you want with it. But let's look at the cons of this laptop. First of all, it's heavy. If all you want is a portable solution, you can't beat that. I will put up the two weights of the two devices up here, and yeah, I would prefer this in my backpack than this. The next con of this laptop is the screen. You can already see it a bit. It has barely any good viewing angles, and that's pretty much a problem with all laptops before like 2015. None of the screens are good, and the farther back you go, the worse they get. And the next thing is the keyboard. This laptop only supports 2 simultaneous key presses. So something like Mario Land already, you can't play the way you want to play it. You can't run, walk and jump at the same time, which is something you might want to do, you know. So you would need an external device to get the most out of these games anyways. Now the last thing is the battery life. This laptop didn't hold up more than 2 hours plus minus. Meanwhile, the Retromini held up somewhere along the lines of 6 to 7 hours. Now if you ask me if I would rather take the laptop so I could play more advanced games, or the RS90 so I could play for longer, I would gravitate towards the RS90. But in the end, you have to decide what you want and what you don't want. Now, if you want to go with a laptop, at least go with a newer model than 2005, or as the comment mentioned, 2001. And if you want to go with a handheld, there are better alternatives, you know? But if you can pick one of these up for cheap, go for it. Both of these devices have their use case. And the laptop even more so. Because a lot of people, they don't need too much power. This laptop can still read emails, it can still use IRC if that's something you want. It can still browse Facebook. It might not be the fastest, but hey, it would be enough for grandma. Instead of throwing this into a landfill, upgrade it a little, and you have a great device. Instead of throwing this into a landfill, put some custom firmware on there, and it's gonna be a little bit better. Now to round it up, the winner of performance is the laptop, and the winner of convenience is the RS90. And last, if you manage to keep one of these devices out of the landfill, then you are the winner.